With Liquor Barn, you can shop your favorite bourbon, that perfect bottle of wine, or discover something new. To place an order for pickup or delivery, download the Liquor Barn app, visit liquorbarn.com, or call your nearest Liquor Barn location. Follow us on social media and subscribe to our email list for all the latest news on products, promotions, and events. Liquor Barn, where Kentuckians go to celebrate life. Cheers!
Welcome to the Bourbon Life Podcast, your source for all things bourbon. Join your hosts, Mark and Matt, as they drink and review bourbons, share news about upcoming events, interview the who's who in the bourbon world, and, most importantly, bring you along for the fun of living the bourbon life. Now, here's your hosts, Mark and Matt.
All right, everybody, welcome back for another episode of the Bourbon Life Podcast. I'm your host, Mark, and with me tonight in a new location is my good friend, Matt. Matt, how you doing, man?
Good. We're in the Bourbon Life's personal kitchen area here.
Yeah, the mayor.
Your commercial kitchen. Yeah,
the mayor of Liquor Barn has returned home.
That's right, to your constituency.
That's right. Yeah. So we're actually recording live tonight at Liquor Barn in Hamburg here in Lexington, and I'm really excited about this. We got a great guest lined up tonight. We've been talking about doing this for probably a year and a half or more, come up here and do a live show. So this is the first time we've managed to set that up. I'm just really excited about this, Matt. What do you think, man?
Absolutely. It's fun to take the show on the road, and now we've actually got a little bit of an audience. Or
we do.
There's some customers out there that just kind of came over this way because they heard someone talking. But anyway, we're going to call it an audience, right?
We're going to call it on it. We're going to call it fans of the Bourbon Life Podcast. How's that sound?
I like that even better than audience.
That'll work, man. Well, we do want to thank all of our sponsors, of course. We appreciate everything they do for us. Of course, we want to thank Liquor Barn, especially tonight, for having us up here. We appreciate everything Liquor Barn does for us as well. With that said, Matt, you want to tell everybody who we have with us tonight?
Absolutely. He was the star of episode 90, and we have brought him back. Brad Williams, the VP of Purchasing for Liquor Barn. Welcome back to the Bourbon Life Podcast.
I'm glad to be here in the Mark Rucker commemorative corner of the store.
That's right. This is where the plaque's going.
Oh, yeah. We need to do it.
It's going to be like a sandwich. Yeah. It's going to be like a bronze sandwich on the table.
Could we do like a small statue or something with my name, a plaque?
On top of a barrel?
Yeah, like the Henry Clay, like a miniature of the Henry Clay statue that's down in the cemetery here.
We'll work on that.
That would be great. Brad,
somebody write that down.
Man, we're happy to have you back with us because episode 90, it was you and Jonathan Blue, who's partner in Blue Equity or owner of Blue Equity, that owns Liquor Barn, or did own Liquor Barn at one point. Yeah, so
he did. He's still with us.
Yeah.
He has a role with the new version of the company for about 4 years. I think he's a year into that. So Jonathan, I still talk to Jonathan a lot.
Do you? Okay.
For somebody who used to own our company, I talk to him a lot.
Yeah, well, that's great to have you back on the show, and we're just going to focus on you, focus on what you do here with the store, with the whole brand itself, but also on barrel picks, because that's really your jam, man. That's where you excel.
I do like it.
Yeah, so we're excited about that. This is going to be a great show. So before we jump into talking about everything in the conversation, would you just take a minute, tell everybody what we have poured up for this first round?
Yeah. So the first round we have an Elijah Crag single barrel Liquor Barn. It is from December of 2020, and it's a 12-year from my favorite Heaven Hill warehouse, Deatsville. Similar story to kind of like for me with Russell's Reserve and some of that stuff, Camp Nelson. It's always like when it's from a certain place, like it turns out you liked it before you knew you liked it. And I had the Heaven Hill rep one time. He said, "Man, you sure do pick a lot of Deatsvilles." It was before I even knew what Deatsville was, or where it was, or it was a special shaped warehouse. And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" So he told me the whole story on it. So now when we do barrels with them, I always say, "Are there any Deatsvilles in here?" And he'll say, they give me 6 or 10 samples, and he'll say, "Yes, but I'm not telling you which ones." And blind, I can only think of one time we didn't pick a Deatsville.
Yeah. Well,
so this is kind of my jam without even knowing it. So I felt like since I was with you guys last, I'd probably pull out something that wasn't recent,
right?
Or wasn't something I had that hasn't hit yet. And then I was looking through all the bottles and barrel picks, and I thought these were 2 good 12 years, and who didn't like a good 12-year bourbon, right?
Yeah, man.
Absolutely.
And this is 94 proof, right?
Correct. This is before they started releasing the barrel proofs. last year. So last year they would say, here you can have 9 barrels, 3 of them are 94 and 6 of them are barrel proof. This year they're letting me select which one I want every time.
Okay.
And like a robot, I pick barrel proof every time.
Right. Yeah.
Add water later.
Which is great. I mean, I'm excited because Elijah Crag Barrel Proof is probably personally my favorite bourbon. And I love the fact that they're now letting stores and groups pick these barrel picks, which means it's harder to go around and find all of them if you can. I mean, it's crazy how many have come out recently, but I have yet to have a bad one from anybody.
No, they're always pretty good. And, they do it right out there. And I think they took a lot of heat when they got rid of 12 and went to undesignated, which a lot of people go, it's 8 year. Well, I've been in there. I think sometimes when you get it, sometimes there's 12s and 11s and 10s blended in there to round things out. But there's still some aged ones. I did some labels for us this morning for some we just picked for 3 barrel proofs, and there was 1 11 year and 2 10 years. So it's not always 8 and 9s. Mm-hmm. But
can you just go ahead and put me on the list for that, please, Ben? Right now, I've been 1, been 2, been
12
3.
sandwiches short.
I'm gonna have to buy some more sandwiches at the deli, and then I qualify.
The lobster sandwich.
Yeah.
The lobster rolls,
I'm sure I know somebody, but anyway, so these have always been a favorite. They've always taken good care of us. The Shapiro family was always close with the original owners of Liquor Barn, the Rosenstein family.
Right.
And then so when they sort of left, they sort of adopted me as the person to talk to here. And then, of course, they know Jonathan Blue as well. So we've got a fairly substantial relationship with them. Andrew probably laughs over there. Andrew, who works at this store, does an awesome job. All the Heaven Hill stuff that comes through are like, can we move this? Don't move that. It's Heaven Hill. Fill it up. So it's a family-owned distillery that has made a lot of moves recently. I'm sure you've heard.
Yeah.
So I'm sort of, I don't drink tons of Heaven Hill all the time, but I do like these and I drink these. And Pikesfield Rye is one of my favorite ryes. So.
Yeah, and that's a good point, man, because Max, they just announced that Max is kind of stepping back, and I guess it's his daughter, is that right?
It's his daughter and her husband who will be sort of running everything. Andy has left the company I'm sure if any of you guys are following whiskey, have seen Rare Character, the barrels from Pablo Moy kind of running around.
Yeah.
Andy was kind of silently involved in that for a while, but it was him.
Okay.
So he is definitely involved with them, and then they're coming out. I don't want to ruin it. They've got some stuff coming out over the next year that's going to be pretty cool.
Nice.
Andy's student of distilling history. Pablo Moy from Rare Character is an excellent taster and cocktail guy. So he sits and tastes and will take you through things while Andy tells you about everything that was going on at that distillery in 1972.
Wow.
If you get the chance to sit with those guys, do it.
Yeah.
Or you should have them on. You
We
should have
him
Pablo
on the show.
Moy on here.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, we'll look into that, man.
Pablo, if you're out there, I know you're listening. You need to be on here, brother.
That's right, yeah. So let's jump back to the bourbon. Matt, what are you picking up on this one, man?
Well, I got to ask you, Brad, since you're such a fan of the Deatsville, what is it that you find about these Deatsville barrels from this particular rickhouse that really stand out to you? Because I assume you've probably been through quite a bit of Heaven Hill and their property and done a fair amount
A
of
lot of
picking
them,
out there.
and I couldn't be wrong, and you might be like, no, Brad, I don't get that. And that's perfectly okay. I always found a lot of stuff from them to be sort of minty and a little bit earthy, and some, I don't want to say herbal, some of them very herbal, but these I always liked. I felt they were more like traditional bourbon, and I think if we had a picture of that warehouse, you can see it's got these weird kind of structures to it you don't really see anywhere else. And for me, it's just always been one that I've liked, and immediately I like them. Like first, I mean, you guys have done some barrels now through the podcast series. Like you immediately start picking things out, and they always stand out for me to the point that I made them start doing them blind. Really, it was the Deatsville factor that I was like, no, you can't tell me because I will just automatically start picking those.
That's funny,
Which
man.
wouldn't be the end of the world.
Yeah,
if
right.
it was just like, hey, we shipped you to Deatsville. Great. Send it. So I think like for this one for me, it's obviously been like 2.5 years since it came out.
It's been a while.
But, it's a very kind of soft, traditional nose for bourbon, kind of, vanilla, oak, a little bit, it's very subtle, very kind of subtle tobacco. I'm not going to go full leather, but it's very approachable. And I think part of it's 94 proof, right? So
right.
I think a lot of times people get caught up in like, oh, it's 127, it's 133, it's 105 this. It's like I occasionally it's nice to go back to something a little lighter that's easier to taste.
Yeah. Matt, what about you, man? What do you pick up?
First, I picked up something like a good amount of caramel coming across, and then it turned a little bit like a woodsy, earthy, kind of almost mossy type flavor. Certainly not in any bad way, just like a really natural, like outdoor smelling autumn type day type aroma. And now as it's sitting and it's getting some more air, it's getting much sweeter, and it's really coming across like a Butterfinger.
It's like
kind of like that brittly, buttery, caramely
butterscotch caramel.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then to me, it's kind of oak and spice.
Yep.
At the end.
Very nice.
It's pretty good. Very nice.
Yeah, I agree with that too. It's got a really, really nice sweetness to it. That caramel aroma that comes through. A little bit of that woodsiness too, that comes out. Not a whole lot. And what was the age on this one again?
12.
12 is 12 years. Yeah. So which is not a surprise to pick up maybe a little bit of oak on that.
And for the people that are following Deatsville, it's warehouse AA, and then it's floor 4. So not all the way at the top, but not at the bottom either.
Right. So it's right there in the center, the sweet spot maybe.
Yes.
Right in the guts of it.
Right in the guts.
Right in the guts of the warehouse.
So Brad, this is your second time on the show, and honestly, man, we've only had maybe a handful of repeat guests. So congratulations on joining that elite club.
What do I get? Do I get a sandwich?
You get a free sandwich. I'm going to buy you.
Punch in your Bourbon Life card.
I'm going to punch a Bourbon Life card as a repeat guest.
Yeah,
love it.
So let's talk about you. Let's talk about that'd be fun to share with our listeners and our live studio audience about who you are and how you got into doing what you do.
It's a sordid story.
Hey man,
it is safe for work though.
We've got Jonathan told me wherever he is. He told me that we could stay here all night. So he's like, we close at 10, but take as long as you want.
The bar's open till 10.
There you go, man. So we're good to go.
So I started here at Liquor Barn in Lexington. I lived here, went to UK.
No, wait, you're an Eastern Kentucky guy.
True. Let's go. Let's rewind.
Let's go all the way back, man, because that's an important.
My mom and dad are from Paintsville, Kentucky.
There you go.
I was born in Ashland, Kentucky.
Right.
I moved here to Lexington in 1992, way back when, to go to University of Kentucky. Spent a lot of time here. I started at Richmond Road Liquor Barn.
The Liquor Barn.
Yes. Did we talk about that?
We did. We talked about
I call that the Liquor Barn because there were no other liquor barns at the time. So every other liquor barn has a name, like Liquor Barn Hamburg, Liquor Barn Beaumont, Liquor Barn Hurstbourne. Richmond Road is the Liquor Barn.
Exactly right.
So back then, I was, was in the summer out of school and started hanging around. And funny enough, my wife and I drove out to Colorado on spring break to visit her brother. We walked in his apartment in Boulder, Colorado, and he was home brewing. And we were like, what the hell are you doing? He's like, make my own beer. And we're like, make your own beer? We were admittedly drinking like Ice House.
Yeah,
you remember that?
Yeah. Busch Light.
Mill Best Ice, Busch Light, all this stuff. We were like, I don't know what you're talking about. So we spent the whole week in Colorado just going from brewery to brewery. Came back, unbeknownst to me, Liquor Barn had a fabulous beer selection for 1995.
Yeah.
And I just started buying a lot of beer and drinking it and home brewing. And one day they said, hey, do you want to buy beer? Because this other guy's got too much to do and you can be the beer buyer. And I said, great, I'll buy beer. So I started buying beer and continued to home brew and traveled around the United States to all the breweries. And there's a lot of these guys weren't here that we went, and I actually spent about 3 years back when discs were like real discs. And I had a disc, and I had Ken Lewis at Party Source had authorized me to use their name as well. And so I would go to Stone, Bell's, Dogfish, and say, hey, here we are in Kentucky. They'd laugh at first. And then I'd put the disc in and show them our stores and show them all this different thing and some volume. And there's quite a few beers here today, I have to say. I'd pat myself on the back if I could.
Nice.
They would have been here by now anyway. That's why I qualified as like, by now they would have made it. But I did that for a long time, and they bought the chain in Louisville from Ken Lewis, by the way. Great guy. New Riff, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And we went through all that, and I moved down there. Rob Rosenstein had me move down there to kind of be his eyes and ears. I was young at that time, or at least young enough in my late 20s, and no children living in Louisville. It was actually great. And so there came to be a time when he sold the company to a Canadian outfit called Liquor Stores North America, or LSNA. They tolerated us for about a year, and then they came in one day and said, here's all the changes we're making, and you can either be in store operations or you can be in products and marketing. And I immediately moved to products and marketing.
Right.
When you deal with plumbers and not that plumbers are bad, just like plumbing contracts, snow removal, firings, hire, all these things. Like I would rather be like, no, we carry this, or no, we sell it for this, or this is on display, or this is on sale. So after they went through all the changes, they got done. They said, oh, and you're going to buy spirits for us now too. And I was like, oh my God, I don't drink. I stopped drinking spirits when I was younger because it just made me sick.
Right. I'm a beer drinker.
Like I love tequila now, and I drink a lot of tequila and single barrel tequila. There was a time I couldn't smell tequila. It would make people break a bottle of tequila, and I would get sick and I have to walk away. And so about 3 days into that job, a guy named it's John. They called him Tree at Buffalo Trace. And he's real tall. I mean, he's probably 6'8". Called me and said, hey, you guys are almost out of Blanton's. You got to get out here. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, and this is the truth. Every bottle of Blanton's we used to sell was handpicked. We never sold regular Blanton's. We picked all our 375s, all our 750s. We would pick it all, and it sat on the shelf. He said, you got to get out here like tomorrow. And I was like, shit, I don't know anything about this. I just know like shots of Evan Williams,
right?
Or something like that, or like a bad hangover. And so I went out there. He was very kind to me and would not help me at all, would not tell me anything at all. And so I felt like I did a crappy job at picking. I think I picked Blanton's and Elmer T. Lee that day. And so after I left, after doing all this beer, and the best thing I learned about beer was drinking beer. How do you want to know beer? You got to drink the beer. You got to brew the beer. That's how you understand everything. So I knew suddenly that I didn't know squat. And so this was 2009. I began signing up for every barrel pick that somebody would let me do.
And that was really at a time, I mean, barrel picks really weren't a thing, right?
I mean, for Benny's, Liquor Barn, Party Source, we were doing it.
Okay, yeah.
But there wasn't, Kroger wasn't selling barrel picks.
Right.
Walgreens didn't have a pick.
You didn't have private Facebook clubs.
No, not at all. Right? And so I did every pick I could get my hands on, read a lot of books, tasted a lot of bourbon off the shelf, and just went after it in those days. So right now, I get an allocation for Buffalo Trace sometime in late December, and then they open this portal on January 1 at midnight. So it seems like, oh, Brad, he's out drinking bourbon on New Year's Eve. You bet your bottom dollar at 12:15 a.m. on New Year's Eve, I am at my computer trying to strike on appointments at Buffalo Trace because they're booked out so far.
Yeah,
long-winded way of saying, back then I could call and say, man, we're out of Rock Hill Liquor Barn. We used to do that. We're out of Elmer. We're out of this. When I come back, house tomorrow at 2.
Jeez.
And I would just roll out. They'd roll out barrel. There's days they'd be like, here's the barrels. See you in an hour. They'd walk away, and I'd just be in there with barrels. It was sometimes I joke and say like maybe 2009 to 2014 was like the golden age for me. Of barrel picks because they were all available. No one was crying that we had them.
Right.
Nobody was allocating us. It was just go get them. And so I've done that for a long time. I've headed up a lot of our purchasing groups off and on over the years. And so, Andrew still deals with me a lot. I'm sure he loves it some days and hates it on others, but that's just the way it goes.
Oh, man. Andrew's a good guy, man. He takes care of me when I come in. So he doesn't make my sandwiches, though. No, I'm just kidding. We appreciate him for sure, man. Everybody up here at the store always taking care of us. So, but that's awesome, man. I mean, it's a cool story. But going back to the whole Ashland thing, because I'm from Flatwoods. I think we talked about that before, right? So
we did, and I forgot until you just mentioned.
Yeah, that's right, man. So I'm a little bit older than you, though, Brad. So a little before you.
You look better than me, so you're doing well.
I appreciate that. But your wife went to my high school.
She did. You went to Russell High School, huh?
Russell High School. That's right. Yeah. So kind of funny, small world.
RHS 93.
Yeah, I was RHS 86. So 86. Yeah,
her older brother would have been 89.
Okay. Probably would have known him, man. So it's a small world.
Nobody wants to hear this. We're sorry.
No, that's okay, man. That's what we do. Yeah, that's what the podcast is about. We get to know our guests, get to talk to them about stuff, and it's always fun to find that connection too. So when I was listening back our old show a couple days ago, I was like, yeah, that's really cool.
So were you like in Billy Ray Cyrus's class?
He was old. He was at class of 81. He was actually 5 years older. So yeah, he was out of there. But I did have his hairstyle. I did have the mullet.
I saw that picture.
Yeah, but did you like that? The mullet and
I
the
love social media. That's out there forever now.
yeah, I know. That's all right, man. I was proud of that mullet.
Those are back.
When I was 18. I know
Mullets are back.
Mullets are back. Who's
It's
a
a really
mullet
functional
fan?
haircut, actually.
It is.
When you think about it, especially like in the summer right now, keep the front and everything
Keep the
nice
front
and cool. but
nice
get
and
the
short.
sun
Business
off-
in the front,
sun
party in
off
the
your
rear.
neck.
It's
Sun
all-
off.
it all works.
Exactly
Yeah.
right, man. My dad, that picture. Well, anyway, I won't go into that story. That's a whole nother story, man. But yeah, my dad was not happy about that. Let's go back to the bourbon, Matt.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the palate and the finish on this. Wait, what are we drinking? The Elijah Crag. Yeah, the Deatsville. What do you
The
think,
12-year
man?
Deatsville. It's got a really mature palate right up front. I think maybe some of what I wasn't picking up on the nose comes through in the palate. Nice amount of oak, good amount of kind of those older age flavors with it as well. And it doesn't have, sometimes I get a fair amount of punch from some pepper, some spice right up front with Elijah Crag, and it kind of sits on the front of the palate, but this one gets nice little spice, and then it rolls right onto the palate, just warms you up a little bit, and that's where I'm getting that mint coming through that you're talking about, Brad. Real prominent mint, nice and smooth and creamy on the palate, good and oily.
Yeah, sometimes once you know, you're like, I can't stop thinking that it's got mint now.
I know. That's what
It definitely tastes. What I missed in the nose is definitely on the palate.
Yeah, I agree, Matt. I'm picking up that mint that you talked about, Brad.
And so, not to interrupt, sorry, it's my worst habit.
Go ahead,
Or
man.
one.
You're the guest. You can do whatever. You have carte blanche in this your store.
This is from when this was like a $29 bottle.
Gosh, man.
All day.
Yeah.
I hesitate to think what this will be in a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Heaven Hill has been passing lots of, just for anybody listening that wants to blame Liquor Barn. I'm in a lot of groups, I see it. It's like, no, we did not pass on an $18 increase.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I can tell you from some things I saw for July, when some things start coming back in from them, people are going to be, like, oh, Evan Williams single barrel, $50, huh? And for anybody listening, that's how we work. We're not just sitting back laughing like, oh, we're going to get another $20 out of this. It literally is. They raised the price to us $18, and if you know how math and percentages work, you can't raise your price $18. You technically are losing compared to the time before. You were at 23.21%, and now you go up $18. You raise your price $18. Now you're at 21.79, and somebody in finance is asking you what happened. So they raise your price $18. You got to raise your price $20 to make that even watermark.
That's
So
funny.
it's,
You mentioned the Evan Williams single barrel. I was just actually today talking about that with some coworkers. They were wondering what's going to be the next one that you can find right now that's going to blow up big. And I mentioned Evan Williams single barrel as a possibility.
Called them specifically on Tuesday to make sure that was not a mistake in the file. Same with Henry McKenna is the one I'm really talking about.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I thought they added a $1. I thought they raised it $8. And then it was like 18. They're like, oh, no. This is what it should have been anyway. Fine.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah.
But maybe you should have got there in like $4 chunks.
Yeah.
Over 2 years.
Not one fell swoop.
And listen,
Like,
I sit silently in a lot of these groups. We took a beating over it. It's like, hey, the way we are large enough that we've got a pretty good accounting department. We're on top of things. Like, you raise the price, we're raising our price.
right.
There are other people out there that have a little more lackadaisical approach to invoicing and cost. I saw somebody selling it under cost a few weeks ago, and it's like they just didn't look at their invoice to realize that they're going to wake up and realize they lost $2 a bottle at some point.
Well, I mean, I appreciate you explaining that to us because I know I'm in the same groups, a lot of the groups that you're in on Facebook.
Egregious price.
Yeah, I mean,
talking to
people are
you,
just-
Limperos. He couldn't be here tonight.
I almost invited him to come up and have a sandwich.
Vacations.
With me. Yeah, I was going to invite him to come up and hang out and have a sandwich. So,
He's a good guy. I get along with him real well.
yeah, I agree. And I've never met him in person, man. But he just cracks me up because he will rail on you guys and TW as well. I mean, he really gets on a roll sometimes, which is funny. But yeah, I mean, I'm gled you explained that because
I usually let it roll off. I'm like, I was going to stick my nose in here. People are going to get angry.
You're right.
But then if I know it's completely untrue or unfair, I will. If you see me in one of those groups, it's probably me saying this is not correct.
yeah, yeah.
Or rumors have gone wild.
No, and I appreciate you clarifying that because obviously prices are going up. We'll talk about that maybe next round or round after. But, prices are going up. I mean, it's across the board. There's no question about it. And people need to understand that it's not the stores that are like, oh, we're greedy, and we're making all this extra money. And I thought about that the other day, because you got a lot of smaller stores, and these guys are selling these bottles for $150, $200, $300, $400, and it's like, well, what are they doing? I mean, you guys your pricing is reasonable, so
It's going to be $450 now.
Yeah.
No, I saw it, not to bore everybody, but it was a presentation from a very large supplier last week. And it was inflationary percentages across every category. Alcohol was actually the lowest for the last 6 months at 4%.
Was it really?
I mean, it was like milk 9%, gas, and it was like alcohol was 4%. So we all looked at each other and we were like, "Oh crap!" This means we've already seen a lot of it slyly over the last 6 months here and there, but I don't think it's finished.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
well, I kind of hate to hear that. As a consumer, I hate to hear that, but it is what it is, and there's not much we can do about it other than
And they're probably like, they're going to buy it anyway.
Yeah,
they're going to buy Henry McKenna anyway.
That's right. So Matt, let's get final thoughts on this Elijah Crag, this Deatsville, man. What do you think?
I love it. These picks, the 94 proofs, are some of my favorites, especially when the price was around $30, even up to the 35.
Yeah.
Anything south of 40. To be able to find a single barrel in the 9 to this is 12 year. I've seen some Liquor Barn picks as old as, I think, coming in around 13, 12 year, 10 month. They're a hit every single time, and this one is certainly no different. Taste is right on.
Yeah.
I picked up a lot of things last night and today trying to think of what, should I bring something like some sort of like mic drop? No. I went through and was like, no, this is a good one, right? It's available frequently, not just us and around town and other places. So I thought this was a good one for us to start off with.
You're like, should I take? And you're like, no, it's just the Bourbon Life podcast. I'm not going to take.
No,
it.
It's just Rucker. He loves a sandwich.
Yeah, these are great. This is a buy every time. Anytime I see a store pick 94 proof Elijah Crag.
Yep.
I guess we'll do more 94s.
There you go for Matt. The Bourbon Life. Ooh, the Bourbon Life Elijah Crag Liquor Barn.
We'll make that happen. Don't let me forget.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, guys. Let's take a quick break, get a word from our sponsors, and we'll be back with more in just a minute with Brad Williams, the VP of Purchasing with Liquor Barn, in just a minute.
Three Chord's line of whiskeys embody the spirit of creativity. The whiskey is a true collaboration between producer and composer Neil Giraldo and master blender distiller Ari Sussman. The Three Chord team of expert blenders, coopers, and sensory professionals have developed a multi-step process they call Perfectly Tuned Taste. This process begins by carefully selecting the finest bourbon and rye whiskeys from Kentucky, Tennessee, and Indiana, and then blending them together. Find out more about the whiskeys and distribution in your area at www.threechordbourbon.com.
Spirits of French Lick crafts their spirits using only the finest agricultural product that has defined character, following their motto, respect the grain. They lead the way in representing the quality of the Hoosier artisan distilling process while paying tribute to its inseparable past. By implementing best practices from those early times, combined with modern touches, Spirits of French Lick has created a truly unique place in the industry. Spirits of French Lick products are distributed throughout Indiana, Kentucky, and Missouri, and can also be purchased online through Sealbox at sealbox.com. Visit spiritsoffrenchlick.com to learn more information and make sure to follow them on Facebook and Instagram.
All right, everybody, welcome back for round session period, whatever you want to call it, number 2 of the Bourbon Life Podcast. I'm your host, Mark. With me, as always, live tonight from Liquor Barn in Hamburg here in Lexington. My good friend Matt has joined me and is still here. Matt, how you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing great, Mark. We just had a little break. We got to chat offline. All of our audience out here got to refill, get ready for round 2, as we did the same.
Yeah.
So it's great to be back.
Yeah, man, this is kind of fun. I really enjoy. Not kind of fun. This is a lot of fun.
It is,
because we're always in my basement. We never go on site anymore. When we started the podcast back in 2020, our grand scheme idea was to go travel, visit all these distilleries, and then, like 2 weeks after we started it, Governor Andy said, nope, everybody's in lockdown. Nobody can go anywhere.
It would have been unsustainable for us anyway.
I agree. And so it turned out to be a good thing for us because we were able to grow the podcast and do our recording digitally over the computer, which was great. But man, this is so much fun to be out.
Yeah, it makes these that much more special.
I agree with that. And it's fun. This is our first recording in front of a live audience, man. So I guess they're live. They seem kind of live out there. I'm hoping they're still all alive.
Yeah, those like 6 foot tall Michael Jordan cutouts, like from Home Alone.
From Home Alone,
on the train.
They're all just on the train, like slowly moving away. Yeah, no doubt.
We used to sell those. Maybe you remember back in the day, Liquor Barn sold the huge cutouts, and so we would place these cutouts of celebrities and things in strategic. We had a police cutout that we'd put all over the place. We had Star Trek people, and
I did not know that.
Oh, you'd put them behind when you're younger and you're just trying to have fun. You'd put them behind like a cashier station. So then next thing you know, there's 3 people in line. It's a cardboard cutout behind the register.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is
wow,
cashier.
this is awesome.
Magic Johnson says 21.
Mark
21.
Hamill works here.
Wow, that's incredible. So Matt, tell everybody who we have with us. He's jumping in here, so tell everybody who's joining us tonight
I
as
would
our
love
guest.
to. The VP of Purchasing and the Sultan of Single Barrels at Liquor Barn, Brad Williams, is back for number 2, and we are so glad to have him back.
I love it. Sultan of Single Barrels.
Damn, Matt. I tell you what, man, you're so good with those.
You're in fuego.
He is, man. He is on fire tonight, Matt. That was very good. So this round we got something else poured up. Brad, do you want to tell everybody what we're drinking this second round?
Something very special that
It is so special. It's near and dear.
3 unique souls came together on an afternoon in Bardstown, Kentucky to see if we could do the Lord's work.
Yes, we did.
And come to an agreement on a barrel that people would love.
Yes.
I think we did that.
You know what? I hate to brag on us, but I think we did as well. I really do, Brad.
And I think, I was thinking back on it this morning, and I think that was a really good day, and Sadie took good care of us out there. And I know for everybody listening that bought this bottle, I know we put every one of those through the paces, backwards, forwards, again, water. I remember Matt and I were both going back and forth on the ones we liked initially and the ones we liked later. And I think this one, maybe I'm remembering wrong, this was like Pat Day coming down the rail at the end. I think I may have even written this off on like the first taste or two, and then it just kept going, and we kept going back to it. It's like for me, sometimes when I'm picking barrels, we do a lot of barrels, so it all sort of blends together. But something that you just keep going back to, and it keeps getting better, like over time, with oxygen sitting out there. It's like it never goes backwards. So sometimes, for me, I can go through barrel samples, and it's like it's really good in the beginning, and then it starts fading a little bit as you get through things. And I feel like this one just got better every time we tasted it.
Yeah.
It was a good one.
Yep. And it is a 1792 full proof, coming in at 125 proof. And I don't know. Do you know what the mash bill is on these? I don't even know.
I remember they would not release it, but they mentioned something about how many trucks of rye and how many trucks of corn come into the factory each day.
It's always interesting to me that like breweries are like, this is exactly how we make this IPA. Maker's Mark is like, this is exactly how we make Maker's Mark. And people are like, I can't tell you how much rye is in this.
Yeah. It's like, I'm going to go out and duplicate it.
Yeah, there's no chance you could duplicate it anyway with
It's the
barreling
high
and
rye
maturation.
Sazerac recipe. It's like, from what I understand, there's only like 3 or 4 points of difference between the high and the low one. Right. And they're not the only ones these days that'll tell you that stuff. But I do find it a little interesting.
But we did have a great day that day, man. That was a lot of fun going out there. It was cold, if I remember correctly. It was a little chilly in the rick house, but they set us up and took really good care of us. But we
were December 17th.
Was that when it was?
2021.
Okay.
That was the exact date. You're right.
Wow.
I still got it, guys.
Look at that.
Damn.
I'm going to be wrong for like the next 5 days.
Hey, it's all right. You nailed it today.
Nailed that one.
Yeah, but no, I'm impressed because I'm thinking, was that October? Was that November? What year? What year was that?
The greatest year.
When was that? But
Which
it was
COVID variant were we in during that one?
Yeah, I know. Which one were we under at that point? Which lockdown were we involved in at that time? Matt, what do you pick up on this one, man? This is our pick. And Brad, before you jump in, Matt, it was really fun because we talked about it, and I think I just kind of casually threw it out as we were doing the pick. I'm like, oh, we should make this a Liquor Barn Bourbon Life pick, and you're like, okay. I'm like, are you serious? He goes, yeah, that's the problem. And then I emailed you. I'm like, hey, Brad, now that we're actually through the pick and we're not drinking, were you serious about that?
So I'll dial back to like you think your newest sponsor was your first time that you pushed through on the question. Like, I know the answer is no, but it was back then.
Yeah.
You asked and I said yes. You probably thought I was going to say no. Like, what's the rest I going to say? No?
Yeah, exactly right. So it was a surprise, and then you're like, well, just design a label. Just come up with something. I'm like, okay, here's what I got. And you're like, looks good. Here you go. What do you think? I'm like, I'm all for you. Like, I just submitted it. I'm like, holy shit, we're going to be on a foolproof barrel pick label, man. So
Ma, I'm famous.
That's right.
I'm like Navin Johnson. Look at me. I'm in the phone book.
I'm on a bottle.
Somebody.
That's right. My bottle is still up on my fridge.
There you
for
go,
everyone to
man.
see.
Everybody to see that we are. But now I did notice on the label, on the sticker on here, it at the bottom it says Barrel 1. So
Yeah,
I think that should be an indicator that means there's going to be more barrels coming from Bourbon Life.
yeah. Sure.
Or we just hit
Yeah.
it out of the park the first time.
There
Who
you
knows?
go. It was the best barrel.
I think, and I did this during the pandemic with, if you had them or shopped with us, you'd know there was like Quarantine Select #1, Quarantine Select #2, and I put those over about 6 brands.
Yeah.
Nice.
And this is when I was at home, and so Buffalo Trace, I love you guys. They were not good enough to ship us samples, so they all just dried up, and a lot of people were shipping me samples to the house.
Yeah.
And so my wife, who was not a bourbon drinker at all, started forcing her to start doing, just tell me what you think, and she'd spit and be like, oh, it's this, but it's that, and now she is one of my trusted partners.
Nice.
If you ever see a Liquor Barn bottle that says B+E, my wife's name is Erin, and if you see B+E, that means that was her favorite pick of the day.
Okay. That's good to know.
I just submitted B+E4 and B+E5. For one is an Eagle Rare and one is a Weller 107. There's a Russell. There's not a Russell. There's a Four Roses was B+E2. Anyway, so we would do all this stuff at home, and she got really, really good.
Yeah.
And so, to me, I think the Bourbon Life sticker, again, long-winded, full circle, it would always jump brands. So Bourbon Life 1 is this. Bourbon Life 2 is something else. Bourbon Life 3 is something else. And then somebody who's stalking both of you will have like one of all the Bourbon Lives.
Nice.
And they'll be like, Matt, I have all 7.
Sign them, Matt.
Sign my baby in these bottles. Anyway, so I think I put barrel 1 on there. We only did 1 barrel that day.
Right.
We selected, but yes.
Very nice. Well,
Yes, I
we
have
appreciate
ideas for
that.
more. I'll keep them secret for now.
Well, we appreciate that very much. Matt, what are you picking up on this one, man?
I remember the day, and it's now that it's been barreled, it's not as cold, and it's come down a little bit to 125 proof. The nose on it is a lot. I pick up creme brulee,
Who wants creme brulee?
and like a little bit of that lady finger, especially underneath, kind of that soft, like baked undertones with it. And then there's a touch I always get from 1792, just like a touch of banana.
Yes.
A little vanilla, a little banana in there as well, almost like a light banana pudding. But the creme brulee really comes through for me on it with like a little bit of cocoa as well, dusted over top.
If you ever, well, none of us will right now because they killed the tours. If you ever used to do the tour in 1792, you'd go up there. They would let you take the White Dog off the spirit safe. They come off the still at 130, goes down to 125 to get in the barrel. But if you like Freddie Johnson or somebody at Buffalo Trace would teach you, if you took the White Dog off the safe, not the clap, but just rub it in your hands, it was all like light fruit, banana and apple. Our house brand flatboat is Barton 1792, and as soon as you open that bottle, the regular flatboat, it is fruity. Okay. And if you pour a glass of flatboat, the first stuff you'll get off that is usually sort of fruity, but if you let it sit there for, this is another debate we can have, how long do you let a bourbon sit before you start drinking? You let it sit there for a few minutes, it turns into more traditional bourbon. Vanilla, oak, caramel, all these different things. But it was always struck me as fruity right off the top. Brown-Forman can be that way as well. A lot of banana.
Right, yeah.
And everybody in Lexington loves bananas, right?
A lot of their yeast strain is from, I guess the flavors come from banana, the yeast strain of banana.
And so to his point, though, it's fruity off the still, but I have always found, and I think we talked about this that day, is that the dark fruits when you're there is almost a calling card for 1792 in single cherry, raspberry, a lot of things like that are there. And this one, to me, I don't even ask me yet, but once I start talking,
I was just going to ask you, Brad. What do you
insert question here?
Yeah. What do you pick up on this one, Brad?
It smells awesome, and I do a lot of single barrels, and I do notice that sometimes I get on a kick of a certain flavor or a certain aroma, and sometimes I smell cinnamon in everything I smell.
Yeah.
And so this one to me, strangely, like the Elijah Crag, I'm like, it's soft. It's like soft pipe tobacco or vanilla and a little bit of oak. And I feel like this has a ton of flavor, and then it gets spicy.
Yeah.
In a good way. It's fruity and full and rich, and then it's got a nice kind of spicy medium to long flavor. It's just coming back.
Yeah.
Like while I'm talking.
Yeah.
So this is good.
Yeah, I remember that day because this was, like you said, we kept coming back to this one and we narrowed it down, and it just like this one just kept coming through and shining, and it was like, yep, this is it. This is going to be the one.
And I have to say, Matt, I love your ladyfinger tasting note.
He loves your lady fingers, Matt.
I love your ladyfingers,
I appreciate
sir. But it's true. It has a very kind of fruity dessert quality, and then it's kind of spice and oak. It's really good. Mm-hmm. I'm glad you gave me this bottle.
You're welcome, man. I mean, I'm glad you took us on the pick. So I wouldn't have the bottles if you hadn't taken us on that.
It's got a little bit of a hug, but not an oppressive hug at all. And at 125, it should be up in there.
Yeah. So I'm just curious though about the whole Barton 1792 thing. No tours, no nothing. What I mean. That was a big surprise. I mean, when that came out, that was a couple of months ago, but it was like, wait, what?
And our man Josh Holyfield, who is awesome, Real Deal Holyfield, he left and he's at Makers now. So he was their home place manager, now he's the home place manager out at Makers, and I felt like something was going on.
Yeah. Okay.
And then it was like 2 weeks later, they're like, no more tours. And then Sadie, who was the barrel manager with us that day, is no longer with them. I'm told right now there'll be samples. So we'll go to Buffalo Trace, and the 1792 samples will be there.
Well, okay.
Which is more like just mail them to me.
Because Danny
at home.
Danny he moved up in the whole scheme of things, right? So he was master distiller at Barton 1792, and now he's kind of overseeing all of the.
It's hard to tell out there, and I love the Sazerac guys to death, but they keep things close to the vest, and you never know what somebody's fully doing.
Right. Okay.
Or where they've gone, or they get disappeared or something. Mm-hmm. And then you're like, where'd they go? They're like, oh, they're working on this now. Like,
the Bourbon Protection Program.
Yes. The BPC.
Yeah.
BPP. Anyway.
Yeah.
But these have always been good. And we went out I still remember the first time we did these, I was shocked. The first time I did 1792 barrels, I was not feeling like I was going to walk in there and there was going to be a 7.5 or 8 year bourbon that really caught my attention. It was more of a like, we sell a lot of 1792. I can go pick some barrels and we'll sell these barrels. Mm-hmm. It happens with a lot of brands. There's nothing wrong with that, right?
Right.
We sell enough of this, we'll sell these barrels.
Sure.
But I'm not walking there going, prepare to be enamored with this barrel. And I felt like, what are we in 2022? I would say from 2017 to 2020, I felt like I don't know what was going on out there. Their barrels got better and better and better and better over time. So somebody was doing something.
Yeah, somebody's
right
doing
out
something.
there.
Yeah,
but this is a good barrel, and I do remember it's something I call EGS, empty glass syndrome, is when you're doing a barrel pick, whatever glass that everyone has empty. My man Andrew, we went through this with off hours that day. It's like, for whatever reason, we're not really sure this is it, but everybody's glass is empty.
Yeah.
Usually
on
good
this one.
indicator.
So, yeah, it's got to be top 2 or top 3.
Yeah.
And I think Matt nailed this one maybe the second time through. And then it just kept getting better. That's my memory of the days. This one just kept getting better every time we took a sip.
Yep. Matt's good at that kind of stuff, man.
So here's a question about single barrels, just on the program in general and how you approach things. So on our first round, we were drinking 94 proof. Mm-hmm. Now we're at 125, so we've jumped up 31 points. How do you approach things differently as a single barrel manager, and when you're on a barrel pick, thinking about what the end product is, who the consumer might be, if you're picking something 94 proof, if you're picking something 125 proof, if you're picking something even hotter, or do you just go for what you think is the best on the day? Like, is there a cerebral part of it that you're really thinking about with it?
Yes, and I can tell you there was a long time I tasted everything barrel proof with the theory that if it was really good at barrel proof, whatever amount of water you're going to add, it's still going to be good. So if sample A is here, barrel proof, and sample B is here, barrel proof, if you add water, they're just going to do this.
Yeah, come down equally.
It's not 100% true. So I lived in this thought process for a long time. And then a few years ago, I had a young little guy in his 20s who I trust these days and talk to a lot. But back then he was like, man, all your stuff's like super hot and super spicy and like leather and tobacco. It's just so high proof. And it immediately got like right up into my brain. I was like, oh my God, am I picking things too hot? Am I picking things too warm? Am I overdoing spicy? Because my opinion at one point was if it's bold and it's spicy and it's tobacco or it's leather or it's unique, it's like that stuff people stand in line for.
Right.
People don't necessarily maybe they do these days, don't stand in line for sweet. The regular version of a brand, there is somebody there, that's their job is to taste things. And they taste that stuff every day. So who else is going to tell you which one is right? That guy. So what's on the shelf at Liquor Barn, what's on the shelf at Walgreens or wherever, they've already done a pretty good job of identifying that. So I felt like whatever we did needed to not exceed that in quality, but exceed that in maybe experience of like, man, this is oaky, or like this is a tobacco bomb. So I felt like it needed to be something different. And what I came to realize is maybe I'd left some people behind. Maybe some people would think it was too much. And this guy sort of opened my eyes to that. So I've actually got a good buddy, Matt Moulter, I know you're out there somewhere, that I would take him with me, and I still do. And I'd be like, your job is to make sure I don't take something too oaky or too powerful. And he'll tell me 1 out of 5 times, like, you're being extreme here. This is Brad upset Saturday night at 1 a.m. around a campfire.
Well,
and I would look at it and be like, you're right. We should tone this back. Which one is almost like this, but not quite as much as a fist punch or a kick to the face?
And I remember our first episode we did with you kind of talked about that when you're talking about the fact that, dealing with, when you're talking like with me and with Matt, I mean, we've got experience in the bourbon industry. We drank quite a bit of bourbon, and we've got experienced palates, but then even like in the social media groups where you've got people that are posting things, and you were talking about collections. Somebody posts a picture of 15 bottles, and to them that's a big collection. So it's kind of,
it's all relative.
It really is. Because we all started at some point. I started with a bottle of Blanton's. I mean,
there's nothing wrong with that. They take a lot of crap for being Blanton's.
I know, but that's where I started, and then Eagle Rare and Woodford Reserve, and then now it's 350 or more bottles in my basement. So
it's a lifestyle.
It is. It's the Bourbon Life.
Touche. No, so it's hard. And I've done it over the years. And sometimes I've gone back and be like, man, that one is hot. Or so I'll tell you the truth. There was one last year. We did a stag pick, which I thought was really good, especially with one little slice of water or one small cube. Set that thing off. It was so good. I went out and bought another one immediately and have refused to open it. And people were pinging me, oh my God. And there was kind of a similar thing. This thing just needs one cube, and this thing is the best bourbon I've bought, because it was like 136.4 proof.
Right.
Yeah.
And some guy came here to Liquor Barn Hamburg, tried it out of this case, said it was garbage, said it was all alcohol and heat, and I was immediately enraged.
Yeah.
And it taught me, listen, everybody, we're always learning lessons. Even your 40s, 50s, 60s, you're always learning lessons. And for me, I had to draw back and be like, man, a ton of people have been pinging me about how good this is, and I thought it was really good, and we really tried to dial in that day when we were there. Like, we did that one first, even though you should probably do that last. We're like, we're doing this one first because we got fresh palates, and we're going to nail this thing first before we do anything else.
Right.
That guy got up in my business. There's that one comment on a local Lexington group here.
Yeah.
They'd made fun of you, I think, in the same thread about sandwiches. And he was like, it was hot. It was all heat, and it was terrible.
Yeah.
And I was just like, who is this guy? He's got a 1-bottle collection, Blanton's.
Right.
But it still was an eye-opener. It's like, doesn't matter that all these people talk to me. Doesn't matter that I've done a million of these. This guy didn't like it.
Yeah.
And so that's just the nature of the beast. If everybody agrees on something, someone's lying.
That's a good point, Matt. So let's talk about.
It's a good point, Matt. Talk to us about liars.
I meant to say man, but let's talk. See, I was saying
catch.
man. Let's talk about the palate on this one, Matt. I'm sorry, that's what I was going for. Goodness gracious. This whole live thing has thrown me off, man. I'm just like out of the element here, Matt. So.
Well, I think it's because Matt and I are looking at each other.
I know.
You're looking
And
at
I'm looking at the people. And then I'm twisting
whipping
heads.
your neck around here.
That's all right. That's all right, man. I'm good. So let's talk about the palate and the finish on this one, the full proof.
All right. It's nice and ruby fruit right on the front of the palate, which is funny for the 125 proof and some of the heat that I get on the finish. It starts off really sweet, really delicate, nice bright fruit, and then it kind of gets a little tart. And I think that's where the heat starts coming in, and some of the peppercorn, the cinnamon starts to migrate to that palate, and that's where you get more of those older, that leather, little oak, caramel, some of the wood and the older bourbon flavors are coming through.
Yeah.
A little bit mid palate, and then Brad, like you said earlier, it sits for a second, and then the finish comes right back on the tongue, and it's got a nice, long, tall Sally of a finish.
I like that.
Yeah, I agree, Matt. I mean, that sweetness, and then that cinnamon, that spiciness that comes through, that finish that just goes on, the tongue tingle, which I enjoy, man. It's just like it goes on and on. So
I was in Scotland one time, and the guy, a distiller who did he was in charge of 27 distilleries in Scotland. He called it a prickle.
a prickle
Mouth
on the tongue.
A
Okay.
mouth prickle.
Well, that makes sense.
So I've always taken that one with me too. It's like, it's not a tingle or a tickle. My mouth just has a little bit of a prickle.
Just make sure you put the "ol" on the end of that, right? So
Yes.
then you're all good, right? That. So let's talk about. Well, you know what? Actually, we're probably at the end of round 2. We can come back and visit that in round 3. But I want to talk about the significance of the barrel pick, the program, to the store, to Liquor Barn. So let's kind of save that one. We'll come back and we can start off round 3 with that. That sounds good to you.
Perfect.
Let's take a quick break. Get a word from our sponsors. We'll be back with more with Brad Williams, the VP of Purchasing of Liquor Barn, in just a minute.
The Stave Restaurant is a bourbon lover's paradise right here in the heart of bourbon country. Located at 5711 McCracken Pike in Millville, Kentucky, between Castle and Key and Woodford Reserve, Chef Kyle Klatka prepares amazing food each day that features an elevated Kentucky-inspired cuisine. With a full-service bar, great bourbon flights, and signature cocktails, the Stave is the perfect place to catch up with friends after a fun-filled day of touring the local distilleries. Be sure to check them out online at thestavekentucky.com or at Instagram and Facebook at The Stave Kentucky.
All right, everybody, welcome back for the third and final round session period, whatever you want to call it, of the Bourbon Life Podcast. I'm your host, Mark, and with me tonight, live at Liquor Barn in Hamburg, it's my good friend, Matt. Matt, how you doing, man?
Mark, I'm doing so great. This has been, I can't believe it's taken us this long to do this.
I know. It has
Be
been a long
live,
time.
not just live, but with an audience as well. Live guests, live audience.
Yeah.
We're here.
Most of our guests are usually just dead. No, they're remote.
Mostly, yeah.
Yeah,
And,
so it's nice to
the audience
have
is
that.
usually just my parents, so this we actually have some people listening.
I love
so.
your parents, man.
There's no laugh track.
Me too.
I've never met them. I just can't wait to meet. Well, there's the challenge of running the Midsummer Night's Run, and I know we got the crew here. Philip's here, and Christy's here. Christy's not going to run the Midsummer's Night, but Philip says he's going to run it, and I know you're going to run it. And Stacy's, what's that?
Your speaker's off.
I'm not worried about it. Nobody's listening. So
Okay.
everybody, all of our crowd has moved up, but you know what?
Yeah.
I'll turn the speaker back on so everybody can hear it. But the crowd has moved back up closer to us so they can be near and dear.
That's right. They're crowding. They're rushing the stage
That's exactly right, man. It happens. I used
for
to
the
be
encore, the exciting encore, the finish.
Did I ever tell you I used to be in a band? Yeah.
In all the things that we talk about time after time, I don't know if that's come up more than 5 or 10, 12 times.
Yeah, that's what I figured. Anyway, tell everybody who we have with us, man, so I can shut up, right?
Absolutely. Brad Williams, the VP of Purchasing at Liquor Barn and the man behind the single barrels that you all have come to love and enjoy, is back for round number 3, and he has really brought the heat for this one. Brad, what do we have poured up?
Look at you. Are you a father?
No.
No, because that was a great dad joke. Because there is a little heat on this. It's warm. It's 126.4.
Yeah.
It's a Four Roses OESF from May of 2020. So with our theme of the year of 2020, which was the first COVID year, this came out in May of 2020. That means I was probably there in January. maybe February before everything broke down and went to hell.
Yeah.
Like March 15 is usually what I have that date pegged in my head of when 2020 just really started to suck. This was a good one. These days, anytime you're getting a Four Roses over 11 years, it's a pretty strong statement that they're just not theirs. I mean, the charity barrels and some of these groups you see that are rolling in there for different things. You'll see the 12s and 13s. But these days, a lot of what you see for Four Roses is 9.5 to 11. So I picked this one to go with our original pick of 12 years. This one, 12 years. It's OESF, which is not my favorite recipe, but true story, I don't have one.
Really?
Okay.
And there was a time, we talked about this earlier, we're getting the Wayback Machine, that I would go out there.
We got to do like Wayne's World.
Darker hair, let's wait.
There we go.
So we'd go in there and Mandy Vance would roll out 3 barrels of every recipe. And we would pick one barrel of every recipe.
Smokes.
And so about 3 times, this sounds unbelievable, but it's true. 2 to 3 times a year, Liquor Barn would get a drop of 10 barrels, 1 of every recipe.
Wow. Okay.
So that would mean like 2 or 3 times a year. If that were me, I would be sleeping on the floor of a brick house. At
There was a lot of Jim Rutledge's favorites Tostito chips. They're very salty, and they burn your lips after high-proof bourbon. But he would say, I'm here for the OESK, or I'm here for this. And I'd be like, I've yet to find one recipe that I could dial in on and be like, I like this one. And to this day, I've carried it with me because he said, I'm the same way.
Really?
He was like, sometimes it's this, sometimes it's that. One year it was this recipe, the next year it was this recipe. And so I felt pretty good over the years of like, hey, I'm not here to pick a recipe or approve. I'm just here to pick a pretty good bourbon. And so you go out there now, Mandy's done a really good job out there. They put, they look like a bar top table. They put a cover over the end of the barrel and you can't see what they are. And the last time I was there, we were there for 2 barrels and got down to the final 3, and like a machine, my final 3 were the 2 oldest and the youngest.
Really?
And I picked one of those, like this one, without knowing, is like, this one is the one. I love this one. So we picked the second one, which was the youngest one that day. It was like 9 years, 5 months. So
really?
I think there is something that, they just picked the highest age. No, I don't. We try to do it blind as much as we can. And for me, I'm like, nope, I stuck my flag in this. I'm not backing down. I'm not going to change my opinion because other people are trying to influence me on age. And she's not the only one at Four Roses. Other people will tell you this. There are people out there that, and mostly out of state, that will roll in. They want the heaviest barrel.
Yeah.
For the most bottles, which equals the most money. Or they want the oldest barrel, which equals the best marketing opportunity. Or everybody loves OBSK, and I want an OBSK, and I didn't pick OBSK. And if you get to meet Mandy, she will tell you these stories of people changing their picks after the fact. So I've sort of drawn a line. The saying is like, we will never change. Even if I'm like, you're right, we should have done that one, but I picked this one, so it's, damn it, it's this.
Matt, now you've got a favorite, right?
I tend to really enjoy the BKs and the BFs. So
I spent several years where it was like everything I picked was B.
Yeah.
And then I went on this huge E run. In the B is the higher end. So then E, this is an E, OESF. Mm-hmm. And so it's, I just felt like I'm just going to pick what we think is good that day. And that's what we're going to roll with.
And that's the way it should be done.
Right.
Like, I think any barrel pick should be completely blind. There should be no info on age. If it's coming out at barrel strength of what they put it in a sample bottle or what you're tasting at that day, they shouldn't tell you that.
Nope.
Even if you want to get so scientific as to say that you can read their rickhouse to tell you.
Oh, trust me, there are Four Roses rickhouse people.
Yeah,
Did you realize you picked a Magic Warehouse? No. Because I did not know that until you just told me.
Yeah.
I would want it to be completely blind. Don't sway me. Don't push your agenda on me with anything. Just let me taste it and let her rip.
You want the picks to be from the heart.
Yeah.
Basically, is what you're saying, Matt, right?
Yeah.
Just from the heart.
From the heart.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Right.
So we rolled it out, and this is an old trick I used to do that I noticed in the beginning. It's not always true, but a lot of times it is. Gnarly barrels are usually at least pretty good. So if the staves are all different levels or there's a crack around the bung, that just means there's more air coming, more air going. Things are happening.
It's got barnacles.
Mostly
growing up.
decent.
Barnacles,
I call those pirate barrels. Who got this from the bottom of the Atlantic? They tend to be unique, and they're not always the winner. And when we rolled out that 9-year, 5-month barrel, whatever it was, the staves were all uneven. There was a crack on the bunghole, and for what we still were kind of laughing. We don't know what it is. The very front of one of the staves, it almost looked like somebody had taken a drill and just put this little, it almost looked like a would-be had gone to town on this stave. And so I was like, no wonder.
Probably Matt.
Like, no wonder we like this barrel, because the barrel is gnarly. The staves are crooked. The bung is cracked. There's obviously oxygen and humidity and things coming and going from this. So it's probably drinking more than a 9-year Four Roses. Anyway.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's like watermelon. You know, the uglier they are, the better they taste, right? So
it's true.
So the same holds true with barrels now. Matt, what do you get in terms of the nose on this one?
The nose is soft on this. It's not as pronounced as some of the other ones we've had, but I am getting like.
And it's the highest proof.
It is.
Yeah.
I don't pick up any burn with it whatsoever. It's got a mintiness. Of course, I might be thinking this now because I know it's the F recipe, but there's like a little bit of a buttermint or like a sweet spearmint with it that's kind of lending way in the end to.
Matt, I love your terms. Buttermint.
Well,
That is a great term.
it kind of has like.
No, I get it.
Like that creamy buttermint
Delicious.
type aroma, but
Matt, you're hired.
You're hired. You're writing all our shelf talkers from now on.
I'm picking up some.
Notes of lady fingers and buttermint.
That's right.
There's
Lady
like
fingers.
A little bit of age, a little bit of tobacco coming down the line with it on the nose, like near the end.
Yeah.
Little pipe tobacco.
That's what gets me. Like, this one is something this is one I would take with me all the time. Like, it's high proof, it's bold, as we talked about earlier.
Yeah,
This is a good one.
I'm going to say, I mean, from the three, as much as I love our foolproof pick, I think this is my favorite in terms of the nose for the night. I think this one's, so far, this was going to be the winner, at least in terms of the nosing.
Yes.
I'm not going to talk about the palate yet, Brad. I look at, you're like, you're going to,
I'm doing the distiller's
do it.
picture.
Don't do it. Yeah, there you go. Somebody take a picture of Brad so we can post that because he's doing. So let's talk about how the importance of the Barrel Pick program to Liquor Barn. And I mean, you've been doing this for years. One of the first stores to be actually doing this on a regular basis. So what does it mean to you guys and to the store, to the brand as a whole, to be able to do these picks?
Yeah. You know, I think it means a lot. I think it's beyond dollars.
Yeah.
And what I mean is, like, if we said we did X dollars in barrel picks a year, I think the return on that is higher than those dollars. And I'm not going to say we do the best barrel picks. I'm not going to say we do the greatest barrel picks, but I will say that we try, and that we try to get unique things. We try to walk away with the best things. And I think sometimes maybe Liquor Barn, outside of a couple of national companies, gets a little bit of, oh, they're just a huge company, they're just mailing it in. I can tell you that I do 99% of our barrel picks, plus, unless they're like, the distiller's the only choice. All right, fine. Eddie Russell can pick this one because he's way better than me. So we try, and it's important. And I think there are companies out there. I can tell you one that is out there that's a huge company in the United States. They don't even taste them. They've got a guy here locally who does some of them. I'm working with one of their old guys who was in charge of their barrel program, and it was a mail-in. They're just mailing it in. And their theory is they will sell no matter what they taste like and no matter what anybody did. And right then I was like, aha! There's a reason no one trades these. There's a reason that 28 places in Kentucky have more value in their picks than this place.
Right.
So to me, all it did was drive in. It's like, no mailing it in. You're tasting them all. We're going to go through it. And look, it's not exact. Palates are not exact. Palates are different. And what I like, we might agree on 7 out of 10 things and then vehemently disagree on 3. I went to, maybe I talked about it with you guys before. We did something 2016 maybe with the Russell's guys. It's called Generations Pack. So we went out there, and I did a barrel of Spirit with Jimmy, barrel of Single Barrel with Eddie, and a barrel of Rye with Bruce. Came in this real cool wooden box with a slide, and But what happened that day is I witnessed the three of them argue over one barrel. One of them hated it. I'm going to back that up. One of them loved it. One of them was okay. And one of my guys was like, you want to see my notes? You want to see my notes on this one? He held his phone up, and it was a phone note that said nope. So in my mind, I was like, hey, these three guys are born and bred in this industry.
Right.
They're tasting bourbon 24/7. They're doing events all over the world. They cannot agree on what these barrels are. They cannot agree on which one the best is. So how am I supposed to be like, I picked this one and everybody loves it? It's not going to happen. Mm-hmm. There's a detractor somewhere, and it's not that they're just a rear end. Maybe they are. It's just their palate's different. Or they're in a different phase of their bourbon life. They want high proof. I mean, I went through a phase where it was like, I want 125, I want 130, I want 135. Now I'm like, no, I want 107 to 115. So I've even dialed back myself a little bit. So I think
because you're getting old, Brad.
It's true. There's more gray hair in my beard than my head. But it's something that I've always been proud of. Even with detractors, even this guy that said our stag pick was hot. Great, I love that guy. All he did was challenge me in a way. So it's special to us. I think the stores know that people are going to come in and try to hunt these picks, and they're not all home runs. Let's just say this. So maybe we do 16 Buffalo Trace barrels a year. They're not all going to be home runs.
Yeah.
They're just not. And you've got this little count over here that does one a year, and it was fabulous, and I'm sure it is. I've done it enough to be like, no, that barrel probably kicked ass that day, and it's delicious, and this guy poured it for me, and it is fucking great. I'm not taking anything away from it. Sorry, not safe for work word. But
it's okay.
It's subjective.
Say what you want to say.
It's subjective, and I feel like as long as we are there thinking about it, talking about it, and trying to make a pretty good decision on what we're going to sell, that's the way we should do it. And I'm pretty actually proud of it after 13, 14 years of it.
Absolutely. I think it does a lot to give the store character. It would be really easy to just be a store that offers a lot of different bourbons, rye, everything else for the consumer to come in and get and know that they're going to have a wide variety of everything that's offered from the distillery or in their profile. But to also have this program that shows your character, shows that you want to deliver something special to the customer, and to have someone like yourself that cares.
I still get excited.
I would.
After all this time, there are still times I'm like, damn, did you taste? Oh my gosh. So every now and then you get, you guys probably experience this, everybody sitting here, is you get a little desensitized to the industry and the players in the industry and everything going on. And then you stand there someday and there's somebody that's ready to just stalk Harlan Wheatley. Or you know what I mean? So it's like there's just varying levels of where people are. And you mentioned it earlier, Mark, is you're online this group and we're like, I started my collection. What do you think? It's 5 bottles. And you're like, I think you've got a long way to go. Right. And I don't mean that in a negative way. That's an exciting thing. Sure. If I could dial back and be like, man, I'm really only into 5 bourbons, I'd be like, damn, I've got 30 years in front of me of selecting all these things and trying all these things. So every now and then I try to step back and put myself in their shoes of what's exciting, what gets people excited. Am I taking things for granted? Yeah. Am I taking today for granted and not living up this experience? And I think it helps us in a way.
So Brad, let's kind of expound on that some, because obviously the bourbon industry over the last 8 years has exploded, and over the last 2 or 3 years it's gone absolutely insane. And you've been in the industry for a long period of time. You've seen good, you've seen bad, and you've seen this growth. So what do you think in terms of the future? I mean, is this boom that we're experiencing, is this something that's going to continue, that you think?
Yes.
Okay.
However, asterisks.
Caveat.
If you look at hard numbers, the alcohol industry, American whiskey has slowed. The growth has slowed. It's still growing, but it's slowed down. Tequila in Fuego everywhere.
Yeah.
A lot of that is silver or plata or blanco, in my opinion, replacing vodka in cocktails and sipping. A lot of my friends and I, we truth be told, we sip repos and añejos neat like whiskey all the time.
Yep. Okay.
All the time. It's a great daytime liquor.
That was going to be my next.
It's a great daytime liquor.
Don't get
80 proof tequila.
Don't get into that. We're going to talk about that next.
Listen, we sit in supplier meetings all the time. I'm like, what about this? They're like, well, that's slide 7 if you would wait.
If you just
like,
relax.
I'm sorry, I can't wait.
Just stop.
But I think tequila is hot. Canned cocktails, if you have half a brain and 2 eyeballs, are humongous. That's not slowing down. We are getting inundated with everybody coming up with that. So if you want to look at pure data, pure numbers, tequila, pre-made cocktails are what everybody is doing right now. American whiskey is still hot. It's still a huge category. It's still number 1 in Kentucky. Listen, we all live in a little bubble here. You leave Kentucky, vodka's number 1. And there's nothing wrong with that. I was raised by 2 vodka drinkers. That's just how it was. You can blame James Bond a little bit. We can talk about that another time. But I think American whiskey still has a long road. It's just going to be the growth is going to be not as crazy.
Okay.
And I think what's going to happen is finishes. Single barrels will always be single barrels, and I will always love single barrels. But for the last 2 or 3 years, and especially right now, I'm a little more challenged by blends. Mm-hmm. Certain blends are blending different finishes. These things are more intriguing of what you can come up with, and they're hard.
Yeah.
I have more respect for blenders than I've ever had in my life, because it's an old saying, right? A rose is a rose is a rose is a rose. When you take a Budweiser from St. Louis and a Budweiser from Quebec, Canada, they're pretty damn close.
Right.
You're just not going to get that. And so I think that blending is the current in some ways, or the next thing of like, nope, I blended my own bourbon, or this is the Liquor Barn blend. We've done some with a lot of people. Some of them are really good. Some of them are okay, because it's hard. You think, oh, this one smells like this. This one tastes like this. This one finishes like this. I'm going to go 33, 33, 30. You put them in there and you get nothing like that.
Yeah.
So you're like, well, how do I make it smell like this? Well, let's put more of this one in there. Well, you put that in there and you're like, well, it smells like that, but it does not taste like the one I want it to taste like.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think finishes, blends are sort of the next frontier. Single barrels will always be single barrels. They will always be delicious. But I think that's what's coming in conjunction with, I think in maybe 2 years, there'll be a glut of barrels. Everybody's been overproducing for 6 to 8 years. Some people 4 years. There's gonna come a time, some distilleries will be a year from now, some distilleries will be 4 years from now, that there's gonna be a lot of barrels. And new brands are gonna pop up from these excess barrels. Why can't Liquor Barn do a lot of private label bourbon? Because there's not a lot of barrels to get. Or the barrels they give me, I'm like, oh, I'm not selling that.
Right.
I sell a 2 year for $50. Get the hell out of here.
Right.
Somebody will buy it. Actually, it's what's been proven true, unfortunately. But I think that, to me, and it's only my opinion, which is based on a little bit of history.
A lot of
doesn't mean I'm
experience.
right, but it's like I
a lot of
think
experience.
blends, crazy finishes, not just cab finish, but like crazy finishes.
Yeah.
I tried, we talked about Rare Character. He sent me, and my wife put the box in our closet, and I never saw it. And he said, what did you do with those samples? I was like, what samples? He's like, I mailed them a month ago. So I go in to open them. I'm like, shit, there's all these Rare Character samples. There was a white port finish. And for me, I should know, what the hell is white port? I'm like, white port? It was delicious. Now, one white port sample was only okay. One white port sample was off the hook. It was delicious.
Wow.
Called him in. He's like, sorry, we sold that to this guy in California. Well, my fault, because my wife put this in the closet.
So there will be
Love
no,
you, honey.
there'll be no E on that sticker.
No,
Yeah,
B plus
no B
blank.
plus-
no
B
B
plus
plus E.
blank,
Yeah.
number 6. So I think that is the future. Crazy blends, crazy finishes, blends of crazy finishes. Because where else are you going to go? And what have we really turned into? Scotch.
Yeah.
What does Scotch do? Finishes, blends, weird things. Are they ahead of us? Of course they are. Do I love Scotch? It's okay. But I think that's where it's headed, combined with there will be a large amount of barrels in the next year to 4 years,
Okay.
which will create brands,
Yeah.
create opportunities. I think we see a little bit of it right now with I'm sound like a broken record. Rare Character, Smoke Wagon, Nulu. And I love all these guys.
Sure.
Close with all of them. They're all
Right.
real good to us, and I call these guys all the time.
Yeah.
But the theory
Except
is...
that Chase guy. That Chase guy
Chase.
over at New.
I know you're out there, you
I know.
son of a
If you're
bitch.
listening, man.
You listening? I know you're listening because you sent me a text that said Bourbon Life. That'll be awesome. I'll text you.
This is for you.
Chase is awesome.
This is for you, Chase.
I love those Nulu guys. Why? Because they get MGP barrels, and instead of just sitting on them and be like, here's a 5-year MGP bourbon,
Yeah.
they're not sitting on. They're like, no, we put this with an apple sherry apple sherry brandy barrel.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
All these crazy combinations.
Yeah.
We toasted it, and then we put it in this.
Yeah.
So it's like, is it MGP? Yes. Is it the same thing you would buy from MGP out of their warehouse? No. It came to Louisville, lived in their metal building on Bardstown
That's right.
Road, and then they did this, and this with it. So they've put their own spin on it. Or Smooth Ambler. I can tell you from being from our favorite place in the world, Eastern Kentucky.
That's right.
That
Eastern Kentucky.
the climate where Smooth Ambler is not the same as here. So if you take an MGP barrel, pop it into West Virginia at the bottom of the mountains, different things are happening to it. So I think when these gluts of barrels appear, which is already starting a little bit, but it'll happen more, all these little nuances. And I mean, I don't know if you've ever met Aaron from Smoke Wagon, but
We've had him on the show. We've not met him in person, but he's a
what a guy.
He's a character,
But
man.
he got his barrels, and if he told you the story, he couldn't bottle them.
Yeah.
So they sat out there in the desert with like zero humidity
Yeah.
for 3 years. And then when they popped them, they were like, holy crap, these are fucking great.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I think that is part and parcel to the future. Finishes, blends,
Nice.
new people acquiring barrels and taking something that's standard and doing their own little painter's touch to them.
Yeah. That's a good point, man. So let's jump back, though, and talk about this Four Roses single barrel. Matt, what are you picking up on that one in terms of the palate?
Right on the front of the palate, I get that like sharp, spicy peppermint, that herbal, like it's peppermint tea, because it does have something a little bit earthy with it as well, where it's coming in, and I'm getting like some peppermint tea. Then it's got some heat. It definitely brings the proof on it, but it's sweet.
But you said that before we tried it. You said I was going to bring the heat.
Yeah, that's right. It was a premonition.
It was a premonition of your dad joke that I
That's
called
right.
you.
That's
yeah,
right.
That's right. Yeah.
And then I'm picking up the sweetness of the corn, getting like nice cornbread, that taste of like fresh, dry, really high masa cornbread or corn tortilla with it as well. And then a nice like oaky, sweet, kind of smoky finish on the tail end of it. And as I go back to the glass, and now mine is empty, but even when there was just
Mine too, Matt.
a
Go figure
little
how
bit
that
in there,
happens.
it's
And that was the second
What would
pour for
happen
me.
there?
yeah.
Damn it.
The nose of the empty glass is really, really nice, smoky and like campfirey. Just has all these really great aromas that I didn't pick up earlier.
I would, dare I say, put myself on an island. I would take this to an island with me. This is
Yeah.
everything I like.
Yeah. This is my favorite pour. There's no, even beyond our full proof pour. I mean, I love our
Full proof is good, no
It
doubt
really
about
is.
It's
that.
delicious.
yeah.
And this was delicious.
Yeah, the Elijah Crag.
Yeah, the Elijah Crag was
94
absolutely-
proof is great, but goodness gracious, this Four Roses.
It's just it's got volume, it's got depth.
Yeah.
It fits the recipe, but it also speaks outside of it as well. I could see why this would be an easy one to pick.
Brad, you should have a little more, just for good measure.
Of course. That's what I said. There it is. It's this is a good one. I mean, again, for me, there's so many of these that sometimes I lose track of them. I do have a decent set of notes in my phone in the cloud, so I can't lose them. But this one's good. And the fact that I had this stashed away probably means I had a note in my phone that when it came out, send it to X store. I will go there and buy it and stash it.
Yeah, nice.
But this is, just for the crew again listening to us, this is 12 years, 4 months, May 2020 OESF. This is right up what I would call Brad Street. This is, and this is what sometimes I need protection from.
Yeah.
Occasionally I'm like, no, I like this heat. I like this spice. I like this leather. I like this herbal
Yeah.
yeast. It's the E recipe, which is the lower rye. I spend a lot of time picking the higher rye. But this is a tasty jam.
I agree. It's one worth fighting for in a selection if you had a bunch of different options.
Yes.
So Brad, before we wrap it up, man, let's just talk about the future. I mean, anything coming up with Liquor Barn with you? Can you share with us things that are going on?
We're ending the barrel program.
Don't say that, liar.
We're moving to all absinthe barrels. But
that's right up Christie's. Yeah. Christie's
let's
going to be
talk
like,
about that for a second.
She's going to be like a big
talked
fan
about
of
it
that.
briefly. Is that there's
you
so
know
many
what?
barrels out there these days of rum, tequila, absinthe, barrel aged gin. We do a lot of tequila barrels here. One back in 2010, my old bosses then were like, somebody's got to go to Herradura and pick a barrel, and it should be you. And I was like, I don't want to pick a barrel of tequila. This is BS. I don't want to go down to this and that. I've not stopped talking about tequila since then. Andrew knows. He's over here nodding. It's a side passion of mine is distinct barrel-aged tequila. But 1, it's in a barrel. 2, it's delicious. 3, it's lower proof. Rum barrels. Here's where I get in trouble.
Okay.
Here's where I get in trouble. Andrew's going to walk away. He's like, I got all these rum barrels, Brad. F you. I get in these scenarios, and we try these rums, and they're good. They're really good.
I see a natural
And then I'm
barrel,
sitting there, I'm
rum
like,
barrel.
why wouldn't I want this? Why wouldn't I want to sell this?
Yeah.
And then he's got it, and Mike Hines and our friends at Nashville Barrel Company.
Mike's a great dude,
Yeah,
man.
I talked to him today. They're great.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've got a Hard Truth rum from Indiana that's actually pretty good. Here's the deal: in Kentucky right now, they don't really sell.
It's a hard push, right?
They don't
Try
really
to-
sell.
Interesting.
Try to convert
it's
single-
if I feel like if we had like a 4-square Liquor Barn barrel, people would be gone. Fred Minnick would be like, I bought all of it. But it's hard for me, and I actually have turned down 2 recent rum picks because I was like, I don't even want to try it because I'll probably like it.
Yeah.
And then I'll buy it, and then it won't really
And
sell.
nobody's gonna
And
buy it.
so it's like right now, hey, everybody out there, right now, most of our rum picks are on sale because they just don't move. Now, in other states, they probably do better. I used to cover weirdly, I had the strangest coverage in America at one point. I covered Kentucky, Alaska, Connecticut, and New Jersey. And
Talk about the frequent flyer
that kind
mile.
of stuff would work in Alaska. It would work in the Northeast. It does not work. Everybody wants American whiskey here. So, let's talk about our successes. Let's talk about Brad's failures. One of them is being enamored with rum barrels. Some rum barrels. Andrew's like, yeah, you stuck me with this, Brad.
You
But
better sell this shit, man.
let me tell you what, if you poured it, it's pretty good rum.
Pour it, Andrew.
Does anybody want it? Not exactly. So
Christy's gonna take it.
For the
Christy-
last little bit, people have been offering me rum barrels, and I've been saying, I love you. I will probably love it. That's great. I'm sure your rum is awesome, but I'm not sure that a rum barrel fits what Liquor Barn needs
Right.
right now.
Sure.
So that's part of it. The future, we're back in person everywhere. I will tell everybody here, there's some Willet barrels coming. Don't bum rush the store. We got into that maybe about 2 months ago for the first time in same thing, 3 years.
Wow.
Since we had done them. There's a couple of really good ones.
Okay.
In there.
Ben, put us down. Write us down. Put it down.
Right. So we've got, I think, a 6-year high corn, an 8-year high corn, which is unbelievable at $139. There is also an 8-year OG mash bill, pretty good, and an 8-year rye, which was pretty good. Rye is not my thing. A lot of people like the rye. Look at Man's like, hey, rye.
Yeah. Man
Rye. But those are going to be good. They're coming out probably the next 2 or 3 weeks. Don't line up at the store. They won't. They'll just tell you they don't know anything until somebody tells them they know it.
Andrew, put me down for one, man.
Like Mark's like, I'll
me down
buy
for 2.
5
Pretty good.
Reubens and 6 chicken salad sandwiches. That's
And
so.
4
I'm
Willet
really
single
only
barrel
saying
ryes.
this to tell you about how things are somewhat returning to normal. Like I said earlier, I went to Russell's Reserve for the first time in 3 years last week. So things are sort of happening.
Question.
Yes.
So speaking of returning to normal, when are we going to get back to some in-person lotteries here?
2025.
All right, I'm going to set up
I'm
my
just kidding.
Set up my chair now.
I saw some bears like, we'll return to this in 2024. I checked my watch. I was like, man, that is like a year and a half from now.
we're
Why am I even on this call?
Man.
Wake me up when it's 2024.
Yeah.
I wish I had a great answer for that.
Mm-hmm.
Man, Matt. Matt. But I do, and this is my own personal opinion, feel free to laugh. The pandemic changed the world. It is every 100-year or so change between where we're talking about podcasts, we're talking about Zoom meetings, we're talking about not being in person all the time. And so what happened here is we did a couple of online lotteries.
And it worked.
And an online lottery, somebody in the crowd is giving a thumbs down. I agree with you. I love the in-store things. There was a time, I lived here for a long time. I lived in Louisville for a long time. I go hit the store on those days. All the whiskey guys are in the stores. All the whiskey guys are buying barrel picks that maybe they wouldn't have bought before. They're buying esoteric whiskeys. To me, it's a great day because I see these numbers every Monday. Part of what we do is I run everything we sold every Monday. And that's why Andrew's like, why are you telling me this? I'm like, because I looked at this and I have questions. And he's like, here's the answer. I'm like, you're right, Andrew. You are correct at your store, not correct at others. But those weekends are special. And I feel like people are networking, not in a professional way, but in a social way over whiskey.
Right.
They're camping out. They've got their camp chairs. Now,
we've done it. I mean, Matt and I.
That's how we met.
That's how we met.
I can run our numbers on a Monday by individual items and be like, hey, somebody bought every bottle of New Riff single barrel we have. That does not happen on a Saturday usually. And I love you, New Riff. But I would love to get back to those. I think maybe it's in the cards this fall. Maybe it's spring.
Fall would be perfect time, right? It's all the releases all come out.
So it's I wish we could do it. I wish I had a solid answer right now that's what's going to happen. But there's a lot of stuff that goes into that.
Right.
Number one, guys like Andrew and his team have to be here. Jonathan, everybody here, they have to be here to handle. This store has to be ready to handle 1,500 people.
Yeah, it's a big ask, not just for the store, but also for the surrounding area, the infrastructure, parking, everything else, all these people.
Audi, Chick-fil-A, everybody's calling and being like, calling Tim Nunemaker and be like, what in the heck?
Why people parked in our parking lot?
Like, this is the most cars you've had all year. Sorry. But, and then you go over here to Richmond Road, 1.9 miles away, there's 700 people.
Yeah.
You go over to Beaumont, there's 1,200 people. You go to Hurstbourne, there's 1,200 people. Yeah. So these are hectic days for the store teams to really handle. So they have to be prepared for that. On top of that, as we've talked about a little bit, and you guys know, there's a lot of complainers.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And not just a lot of complainers, there's a lot of schemers.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Unfortunately.
You're like, why does a 7-year-old have a winning Van Winkle bracelet?
Yeah.
So we do these things, and there's learnings where, hey, we did this way. Next time, everything has to be vetted. And my guess is we're out of practice a little bit. So are they coming back? Probably. Do I have a date? No. Online is easy. Online takes less people to monitor and pick winners. I think it's less personal. I think we're not showing off barrel picks and esoteric whiskeys. And I meant to talk about this earlier. I think one part of what I do is we do have to take chances. Like, I have to take chances, and Andrew knows this just because he's staring me in the eyes. Is anybody going to buy a few bourbon barrel? Maybe.
Yeah.
And I love those guys.
They should.
And we're going to sell them.
Paul's
the best.
Great
we're going to
dude,
sell
man.
those, right? So I think part of it is like, hey, Liquor Barn is going to go out and take a chance on Black Button. Liquor Barn is going to go out and take a chance on Reservoir. Yeah. Liquor Barn is going to go out and take a chance on Few, which a lot of people are not.
Right.
But one of the great things about that, though, is at some of your locations, you have tasting bars.
That's what.
Yes. And there is always a plethora of barrel picks of everything that you all have done, and all the stuff that I want to try, but I don't want to buy the whole bottle of.
Yes.
And I think that Liquor Barn has always been a great place to do that, to taste not only what you're picking, but also maybe what's new out there, what everybody's curious about, but They don't know if they want to invest in the bottle, and everything is so reasonably priced.
Yeah,
Like,
and
this is
I
the
think
cheapest bar in town.
I think our pours, I'm not going to say they're cheap, but they're not expensive.
No,
I would
So
say
we live in this realm of like, you're going to pay more in a lot of other places. This goes back to what I said earlier about like Henry McKenna. You're going to pay more in some places, and somebody is not paying attention, and they're doing dollar pours, even though they paid $1.60 for that pour. We are. And love it or hate it, we got a great finance department. I'm totally in tune because I know what they want, and I'm like, this is what they're going to ask, so I might as well go ahead and solve this before they ask me. And that we have always felt like we were ahead of the curve on price changes because that's what you have to do. There are people out there that are not. It goes the same with the pours. And you know, we were down here at this bar in downtown Lexington. It was $2. It's like, well, it cost $2.60.
Yeah,
And
right.
by my math, a $7.50 divided by 25 pours is $2.60. So you cannot do a $2 pour. So it is what it is. And I think the tasting bars have been a huge success for us, whether it's beer pints, sandwiches, liquor. And I will tell you, the impetus of these tasting bars was about 2011, 2012. And that's the cabinet, Andrew. Right there. That is the very first tasting cabinet.
Very nice.
At Liquor Barn that was actually at the Springhurst store in Louisville. And what it came from was me, that's where my office was for a period, standing in the scotch aisle trying to sell scotch at Christmas. And people would be like, I'm not spending $90 on something, blah, 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 blah. So I'd be like, what if we had a way that somebody could buy 1 ounce
And just taste
of Ardbeg
Right.
Committee or Ardbeg
Right.
10, and they could decide where they wanted to buy there or not. So all this started as an idea about scotch, cognac, and brandy, which are the top 3 things that people here in Kentucky don't really buy, but if you leave Kentucky, people buy.
Buy it. Yeah.
And so there's always somebody's like, my boss loves brandy. I'm here for a gift.
Right.
And what happened is it took about 2 years for it to turn into pretty much a bourbon and rye cabinet.
Yeah, and it's. I mean, I love it. Matt and I.
Fine
well,
with me.
I mean, we met up here at a release, but then we actually met again.
Is that your origin story?
Yes.
We have an
seriously.
origin story
Yeah,
podcast one day?
We met here at a Pappy raffle, and then after that,
cemented ourselves here.
Like
the,
we ran into each other drinking up here at the tasting bar.
Yeah, Mark Ruckerville.
Yeah, exactly right. I'm the mayor of Liquor Barn here in Hamburg. So, but no, we ran into
And we
each
love
other,
you.
and and I was like, hey man, let's we started drinking together up here, and we just started hanging out, and I was like, we started talking, and I was like, we should do a podcast about bourbon. Matt was like, no, and I was like, okay.
He wore me down.
I did, man. I was like, let's do it, because I knew he had great. I mean, every time we tasted bourbon, he was like, I got
Lady fingers and buttermint.
I know. I was like, how
get this
how
to
can
the
I not
people.
do a podcast with
get
this
this
guy,
to the
man?
people.
Yes, Matt's palate. I've got.
And
to
you're
get
not
this.
wrong. I mean, I have fun with those are spot on.
Yeah,
those
they
are
are.
Matt. Those are spot on.
Thank you, Brad. That, coming from you,
yeah,
that
man.
means quite a bit. Thank you. I appreciate
And
that.
I think everybody sees it differently. Everybody tastes it differently. And again, I think everybody gets in their own little palate zones. And I'm not lying when I say there are times where I'm like, man, I've been to like 6 barrel picks lately, and I am on top of cinnamon, or I'm on
Right.
top of vanilla oak, and so that sort of follows me around. So listening to you espouse the virtues of some of these bourbon is great.
Yep.
You were
I
spot
agree.
on with that. You were spot on. Buttermint. Like, I wonder how many people have said the word buttermint in like the last 6 months. Matt, that's probably it. But it was on point.
Yeah.
So
I'm
I'm going to call you about some shelf talkers.
I agree with. No, I'm
Let's
serious,
do it.
man. I agree with that. Matt is great, and I was very fortunate. I mean, we just started hanging out, and Liquor Barn brought us together, man. So, Liquor Barn is the source of the Bourbon Life podcast. Were it not for Liquor Barn, we wouldn't be here.
And our sandwich sales would be like
And the same,
1/3.
I know, man. I mean, you guys would have a lot more chicken salad.
What do we do with all this chicken salad?
It's like Mark.
No, we appreciate it. And I do think for me, getting around, I can say this for Bowling Green Liquor Barn, E-Town Liquor Barn, Middletown Liquor Barn, Springhurst Liquor Barn, Beaumont Liquor Barn. There are people that come to these stores in these bars all the time. So I live in Louisville. I'm a UK fan. I've lived here in Lexington for a long time, in the Ville for a minute. Springhurst and Party Mart are kind of my own stores, my home stores. When I walk into the Springhurst store in Liquor Barn, it's a lot like here.
Yeah, right.
It's the same people. I walk in Thursday, it's almost like Norm. Brad, hey. And I'm like, I'm not here for this, but I'm going this way. Hey, what's going on? And so for me, sometimes it's very heartwarming.
Yeah.
To be like, no, Josh drinks here 3 days a week. And I think that separates us from a lot of places. Not everybody. And I think, to be fair, there's a lot of smart local independent places that have adopted this
Right.
methodology, and more power to them.
Right.
They were probably here. And they're like, you know what, we can do this, or we can set up our own little thing out here in Nicholasville. And more power to those guys. I don't hate them or denigrate them in any way. It's just it's a good way to do business.
Yeah.
Is to bring people together over bourbon, beer, sandwiches, other things. So
Yeah, I think it's a testament to what you have done, because it's hard to take a store, you're a store, and get a community out of it. Because when you're a store, you want people in, you want them buying, you want them out, right? You want to just keep shuffling people through, moving stuff off shelves. But what you've done, creating a tasting bar, creating places where people actually do come on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and where you can know that at this time, at this place, you will probably find this person.
it's the only place you know him.
Right?
I see this guy every Friday at 7.
Yeah.
You know his name? Not really, but we drink samples together. And that's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
And that's the honesty, I mean, of the situation, man. So that's why I love Liquor Barn. I've been a fan. Well, I mean, we talked about this the first episode. My wife used to nanny for Rob and his wife.
Rob's the best. I talked to Rob the other day, actually.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've been a fan of Liquor Barn since the Liquor Barn.
Liquor Barn.
Exactly right. Back in the late 80s, man. So, and, you know, this store is it's kind of like home. It's a half mile from my house. So this is where I come. So
you could walk home if you had to.
Oh, if I need to, yes, I can walk.
I call it Frankenstein walk. You could Frankenstein walk from here if you had to. And they'd be like, what's wrong with that guy rolling down Manowar?
It's like he's been at Liquor Barn tonight.
He walked across that people bridge.
Yeah, that's
for
right.
Animals.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. All right, guys, we should probably wrap it up. We've run over, but no, man. We've had a great time, and this has been a lot of fun, right?
Yeah.
Matt, all right. So
Long time coming on this one.
Yeah. Final thoughts. Four Roses single barrel. I'm just gonna say this is my favorite pour of the night. I could drink the whole bottle. Matt.
Mm-hmm.
Likewise.
Yeah. Okay. No doubt.
Agreed.
Yeah. Brad, man.
I liked all three of these, though.
Yeah. No, definitely. I mean, I love our pick, and I know a lot of your people here in at the store were like big fans of that because it was like gone fast.
But not to dial back here, and I know you're trying to end the show, and I'm extending it completely. But I think that shows like that wasn't any different than most picks we do. We talked about it. I think I even had a favorite, and that's not what we picked.
Right.
It's a discussion and what can happen and where we should be with the selection. And I mean, good on Matt, man. He picked it early. I think the second time through he picked this bottle.
It's his late,
and then
lady
slowly
fingers.
over. It's his buttermint lady fingers.
Yes, they do.
Over time, it was like this bourbon, and I think anybody who's out there drinking bourbon all the time, if your glass just keeps getting better, then you should just dig your claws into that brand or that bottle.
Yep. Good point, man.
That was a good day. So I will look at our schedule.
Yeah.
And I will find time for barrel 2.
Man.
Of Bourbon Life in the Liquor Barn.
That's going to be awesome.
Perfect.
I appreciate that.
It's going to be Malort Bourbon single barrel.
It's going to be a run.
They're looking at each other. They're looking at each other like, I don't think we want this.
Yeah, let's go back and revisit. We'll talk about that. We'll get back to you, Brad.
Noted.
All right. So before we wrap it up, Brad, anything you want to add before we get out of here?
No, I think I've spoken enough. Probably.
Matt,
no one gave me the nose rub signal though. I told you.
No, man, you've done great, man. No,
talking too much.
This is a lot of fun, man. I mean, we've had a great time tonight. So, Matt, before we wrap it up, anything you want to add?
Brad, thanks for taking the time for having us here in your place and enjoying some great pours with us. It's been fun.
No, really we love you guys, and we appreciate all your support and all the support of your patrons for sure.
Thank you very much, Brad. Matt, well said. Before we wrap it up, I want to thank all of our sponsors, of course, Liquor Barn. Thanks for having us here, Andrew. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight, man. And
Andrew Hatfield,
yes,
the
sir.
Man behind the curtain at Hamburg.
That's right, man. And Jonathan's not here. Jonathan went home, man. What a
He went to lift weights. That's how he
I
gets
was
so
gonna
buff.
say, he went to go.
He's bench pressing right now.
He went to
listening
drink some
us.
protein shakes and pump some iron, right? And Tim was like, "I'm going to listen to you guys." I'm like, "Tim, this doesn't come out until like Friday, dude." But thank you. So
Tim is the man.
he is. I love Tim.
BT
man.
Dubs, by the way. Tim is awesome. Tim, you're listening 3 days late, but I love you, dude.
Yeah. So we appreciate Liquor Barn, man. We appreciate all of our sponsors. Thank you all. Thank our live studio audience for being here tonight. The Bourbon Life crew for showing up with us, man.
I'm making clap sounds for them.
That's right. Wait, hold on. Can I do a? Wait. No, that's not the right
no,
sound.
that's Disco Jam.
I missed it.
No,
Wait.
just
That's a good
There
intro.
it
Oh,
is.
there we go.
There's the clap.
Oscar claps.
There we go.
There we go.
There we go. Thank you guys for being here. We appreciate it, man. So we appreciate all of our listeners. Thank you guys for everything you do for us. And before I wrap it up, well, I guess I'm going to send it home, right?
yeah, send
Goodness
us out.
gracious, I've been drinking too much. You brought
It's a
too
good
many.
thing.
You brought too many high proof drinks.
I will say I overthought this.
Yeah, that was nice. I appreciate that very much.
The Frankenstein walk might be on the verge here.
All right, I'm going to wrap it up. Send us
Bourbon
home.
Life producer
Oh,
arrested walking
jeez.
down Manor Ward.
Wow.
Ran over small child with Frankenstein walk.
Yeah. Wrap it up. Send us home with our tagline, which is, may your glasses always be full, and may you keep on living the bourbon life.
Cheers, everybody.
Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of the Bourbon Life Podcast. Our mission at the Bourbon Life is simple: to share our passion for all things bourbon with you every week. And we'd really love to hear your thoughts on how we're doing. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at The Bourbon Life. You can also contact us by email at thebourbonlife@gmail.com. And you can always find us on your favorite podcast platform. If you have a moment, we'd love it if you would rate us and give us a review. So until next week, we hope your glass is always full and that you keep on living the bourbon life.